Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. We're going to talk about the reason for the season. And no, this isn't a holiday episode. We're talking about seasons in your podcast and whether or not it's a good idea, whether or not it's a bad idea, what's an advantage to using a season, what's a disadvantage, and a few tips for you if you decide to use seasons in your podcast to make your seasons better, more impactful, and better for your audience. So seasons are a great option, something to consider for your show. Glad you're here. Whether or not you do seasons in your show, this episode will maybe spark some ideas for you and your podcast. Thanks for being here. So at this point, for me as a podcaster, I have multiple shows. Each of my shows have a different cadence for how often I record episodes. This show and Living the Next Chapter do 3 episodes a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And for now, I don't see that ending anytime soon. So I don't have a season for this show or Living the Next Chapter. Actually, I don't have seasons in any of my shows. To this point, I might do one in the future, but at this point, all of my shows are ongoing. They don't really have an end date. That's because, for me, my topics I don't really run out of ideas. I have more ideas than I have time. So I have no reason for me personally, with my life schedule, with my routine, with my family commitments, the job that I work, I don't really have anything else competing for my time. So this might not work for you at all, but for me, I don't see an end to what I'm doing right now. I'm really enjoying it, and I love being with you. So I love doing, for this show, 3 episodes a week, and Daily Daves, and co-hosted episodes, the solo episodes, all of these things bring me a lot of joy because the things that we talk about here, I'm envisioning they help you in your journey to start a podcast, continue podcasting, and grow your show into the future. So I love showing up for you on a regular basis. So for me, from my point of view, specific to how I podcast, a seasonal approach to podcasting is not really in the cards for me at this point. Maybe in the future, but right now, I'm not doing seasons. So I wanted to kind of talk about what are seasons so we can kind of understand this, because when I talk to new podcasters, they come to me and say, Dave, I want to start a show and I'm going to do seasons. So my question back to them is, why do you want to do seasons? And the misunderstanding that I'm getting from people when they come and talk to me about starting their show and doing seasons is they believe that that is the most common way of podcasting, that everybody's doing seasons, so I'm going to do seasons, which there are advantages, and people who do seasons have reasons, again, reason for the season. They have reasons why they're doing a seasonal approach for their podcast, but that doesn't mean that you as a new podcaster have to go down the path of seasons. You don't. You can do whatever you like. I love even telling people that you don't have to podcast forever. You can create a 10-episode series of episodes and be done. And then move on to a completely new project, a completely new podcast on a new feed, doing it all again. Every book has a beginning, middle, and end. And books don't just keep writing themselves into the future. So there's a natural kind of storyline, a story arc in a book, and it comes to a completion. Now, you might create multiple books in a series around this topic, but generally, a book can stand on its own, and your podcast could stand on its own. So you could do 5 episodes on a topic. Put it out there as a coach, as a business leader, do 5 episodes, and then be done. Your podcast is over. And that's fine. That's a great approach to podcasting. The idea that when you start a show, you have to then commit to podcast every week, 3 times a week, daily, once a month, twice a month, for the rest of your natural life is not accurate. You don't have to commit to that type of schedule. Some of you will, And some of you don't have, some of you won't. You'll never do that. So then people think, well, because I can't commit to doing it every week for the rest of my natural life, then I'm going to do them in chunks or seasons and then take gaps in between when I can go do other things other than podcasting because I have a life. And I like the breaks. Again, another approach that worked well for many people, and it could really work well for you. I personally am not on that path, but if you're on that path, I just want you to understand the reason behind your season. And don't just think that seasons are the most common way of podcasting, and they are the only way. If you're talking to a guru and they're telling you you have to do seasons, then this word have to, I fight against in podcasting. Everything's an option. You can do whatever works for you. And there's no have-tos in podcasting. Please, the moment you hear somebody telling you you have to do it one specific way, you're in front of the wrong person, getting bad advice, and you need to find someone else. Slowly raising my hand as I'm recording this, you need to find someone else who's going to encourage you to find the right path for you, not the right path for the guru who's trying to sell you something. Enough said on that. So what are some advantages and disadvantages of podcasting in seasons? Well, again, before we jump into that, when you upload your podcast to your hosting site, there is generally an option for you to upload a single episode as episodic, meaning there's no order to it. It can be in any order that you upload, and generally it's ordered by episode number and date of release. Will show up in everyone's listings on their Apple, Spotify. The most recent episode, general terms, will be at the top of the list, and the oldest episode will be at the bottom of the list. Unless you resort it, you can resort your app and have the oldest at the top. But generally, that's how it is. Newest episode at the top. Episodic episodes are not reliant on the episode previous, not reliant on the episode to come. They're just episodic. They're just today's episode. Here we go. Standalone. Done. They're not meant to be done in order and listened to in a certain order. A season, on the other side, would be something that needs to be listened to in order. Again, let's go back to a book reference. You're going to start at chapter 1 and you're going to work your way through chapter 20. And for you to start at chapter 3 and then jump to chapter 8 and then back to chapter 1 and chapter 19, you're going to lose the context of the book. You won't know what's going on. And you don't want to start at chapter 20 and read backwards to chapter 1. That would be a weird situation. So it makes sense to have your episodes show up in order from chapter 1, episode 1, all the way through all the different chapters leading to the finale at chapter 20. So you want all of your episodes to play chapter 1 to chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, all in sequential order. That makes sense. So when you do seasons, you can upload your podcast to your hosting site and you can mark it as a season. So season 1, season 10, season 13, whatever. And then you start your episodes within that season to be numbered by the episode number. Right. So you could have you have season 1, episode 1. You can have season 10, episode 1. You can have season 30, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. And so what happens is it groups it by the episode in order, not by the most recent in order, and groups them together so that you start at the beginning of the season and you receive your episodes in sequence starting from the first chapter through to the 20th. Or the 10th, whatever, how many episodes you have. That's the bonus of doing episodes in a season, is there's a logical order to everything and everything makes sense because everything relies on the previous episode. So if you want your listeners to listen in order, that is a reason for a season. Just creating a season so you can have a holiday is not necessarily a reason for a season for your podcast. You do know that you can take a break anytime you want, leave your podcast and come back without having a season. This show right here, my show, if I'm going away for 2 months to do something, knowing the way I podcast, I'm going to probably pre-record and have them all ready to go anyway. But if you don't have the luxury of time that I may have, you're just going to say to your audience, listen, everybody, thank you for being here. I'm going away for 2 months with my family to do this thing. I'll see you in like September. I'll be back then. That's it. Now, why do we do that? Do we owe our audience an explanation for taking a break? No. Are they paying for this podcast? Probably not. It's probably free to them. But I don't owe anybody anything. I don't have a sponsor who's signed me up for a certain number of episodes over a certain period of time. So it's not a job to me to create these episodes. So I have nobody telling me that I have to meet this number or this requirement. So I can stop anytime I want. I can take a break from the show, walk away. There's like 500 plus episodes. There's a lot to listen to that I'm sure you've never heard on the show. So I'm not worried about running out of content for you. There's a lot here. I could take a break and walk away. I don't have to have a season to take a break. And that's kind of this misnomer around seasons is the only way I can take a break is if I do seasons. No, just tell your audience why you're taking a break, when you're going to be back, and that's it. Now, again, the reason why we do that is because people build their world around you. And if you just disappear without explanation, people are concerned. They're like, what happened to Bob? Bob just disappeared. One day he's here and now Bob's gone. I hope Bob's okay. Let everybody know that you're fine and that you'll be back in a certain point, and then come back. One thing you can do when you do take a seasonal break is to be active somewhere where your audience is. So they still feel in touch with you. They still see you posting here and there. You haven't just fallen off the earth. And people know you're still okay. So whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever you are, and wherever your audience is, just show up during that little break. Whether or not you podcast in seasons or not, take your breaks, but just show up and say, hey, everybody doing good? Hope you're doing well. See you again in September. Bye. Little things like that just help your audience to remember, oh yeah, Bob. Yeah, Bob's be back in September. Good. Just keep that in mind. You do not need to have a season to take a break. And I hear so many gurus telling you the only way to take breaks is to podcast in seasons. And I just don't see that as a mandatory have-to thing, again, in podcasting. Again, let's go to the advantages. By taking a seasonal approach to podcasting, if you decide to do that, so you podcast for a certain period of time, then you're on a hiatus or a break for a certain period of time, and then you come back, prevents burnout. It allows you to take a break, walk away from this podcast machine, and enjoy time with family, travel, take a course at work, whatever. You got things to do. So this allows you to take natural breaks between your production cycles for your show. Think about your favorite TV on Netflix or Prime or old school TV. They didn't release an episode of your favorite show every week forever. They took breaks, and they'd have a season finale. They'd come back with a new season, and there's a gap. And that's kind of the people romanticize podcasting in terms of television and series TV. That's how I'm going to do my show. Again, no problem doing that, but make sure there's a reason for your season. When you take breaks like this and use seasonal approach to your podcast, it can really be beneficial for solo podcasters or those balancing multiple responsibilities. So you're a young parent, you've got kids, it's summertime's coming up, they're going to be home with you all the time. Podcasting might not make sense when you're busy and you have kids to entertain and a different routine than you have during the fall and spring. Then great, take a break. Take a break. Just tell your audience. But don't feel like you need to revert to a seasonal approach simply to take a break. It also helps you to improve your planning and the quality of your content. Seasons encourage batch production, recording multiple episodes in a row. You can record all of your episodes during your break and then just release them, allowing you to spend more time promoting, more time building relationships with your audience. During the release of your episodes during the season, you can spend less time recording and more time interacting with your audience instead of trying to do both. So take your breaks, but in that break time, maybe you do your recordings and you record them now and you release them in the future. Excellent. You can get better quality content because you have more time to focus just on the recording and not so much on the promotion. It's a great alternative to trying to do everything at once. Podcasters can focus on the research, on scripting, on recording in dedicated time blocks, resulting in a more polished and consistent listening experience for your audience. You can also focus on themes and story arcs. A season lends itself to you covering something from beginning, middle, and end. So you cover the entirety of this topic with a logical conclusion, ending off with a season finale. It's great for themes. Thematic seasons make it easier to explore topics in more depth and create more compelling story arcs, which can really enhance the listener engagement and the learning that happens during your show. This structure is particularly effective for narrative, educational, and more investigative podcasts. So if there is a natural story in your true crime podcast of somebody commits a crime, somebody gets caught for the crime, somebody gets tried for the crime, and the judgment falls, well, that story's over now. Now it's time to move to a new one. So that could be a season. And if you want to podcast every week, ongoing, and you love the idea of seasonal themes, I do that here on this show, where I'll do a group of episodes together and then go back to my regular show. Or you can do a seasonal theme or a thematic presentation on your show and then move right from that to the next theme without a gap. You can group your episodes together, and it's kind of more of a fun experience for your audience. So within one calendar year, you could have 4 seasons. Just like there's 4 seasons in nature, you could have 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, and each one of those is a theme around a topic. And all of the episodes butt up against each other. There's no break, but you're still podcasting in seasons, right? There's no limit to how many seasons you can have. Just keep that in mind. You can do whatever you want with your show, whatever works for you. Be creative. And don't just follow one person's advice and say, well, they said seasons are important, so I'm going to do seasons. But again, there's no reason behind that. You don't have a reason for your season. It's great for thematics, themes, and story arcs. Also, it can be strategic for your marketing opportunities around your show. A seasonal launch and finales offer clear opportunities for more targeted marketing for your podcast. It's an opportunity for feedback. It's an opportunity for you to improve. And it gives you flexibility to experiment. Each new season can be an opportunity to test new formats. So one season can be interview. The next season can be solo hosted. The next season can be all something completely different. Like, you can do whatever you want in your show. It doesn't have to be the same format: interview, solo episode, co-hosted, thematic, story-driven, short form, long form. You can do anything you want. So a seasonal approach allows you to change up your format even, as well as your topics. So those are some advantages to doing a seasonal approach to your podcast if you choose to do that. Again, these are reasons then for a season. They're advantages. What are some disadvantages? What are some reasons to not do a season in your show? Something to consider as well. You need to see both sides to make the best choice possible for you and your podcast. But what are some disadvantages to doing a seasonal approach for your podcast? So every coin has 2 sides, heads or tails, right? You get to choose. And the disadvantages, potentially, if you choose to go down a seasonal podcast route for your show, where you do a group of podcast episodes and you take a podcast break and you come back for a new group of podcast episodes, you risk losing some of your audience momentum. So think of you riding your bike up a hill. Okay, you're pedaling, you're at the base of the hill, you're in San Francisco, and it's all up from here, right? You're just like, oh my gosh, these are big hills. So you start pedaling, and you're giving it all you got, and you're like a quarter of the way up the hill, and you're like, well, I'm making progress, it's very hard. I don't see the end in sight, so I'm going to take a break. And you stop and you sit on the side of the road for a few days, a few hours, a few months, and you just take a break. When you come back to your bike, that hill doesn't look any smaller. And you might actually not have the same energy you had when you started, and your bike might roll down the hill a little bit, and it takes you even longer, even to get back to the spot where you stopped, because momentum's not in your favor, right? You've taken a break. When you take extended breaks between seasons, it can lead to a drop in your listener engagement. Just because you took a break from podcasting doesn't mean your audience has taken a break from listening to podcasts. And if you're not there, as much as they love you, they're going to replace you with something. I've heard people say, I'm not going to drive with silence in my car on the way to work because you're on a seasonal break from your podcast. I'm going to fill up the silence with something. And in that moment, when I replace you with something to fill the gap while you're gone, I might fall in love with what's filled the gap and maybe not come back to you. And in that moment, you're going to show up for the next season, and some, not all, some of your audience may have found something else that has filled the gap and they've fallen in love with at the expense of your show. And now you gotta get them to break up with that other show and come back to you. That's a big hill to climb. So when you take a break, you give people a reason to not come back to you. And in that, I think you're creating kind of a lack of momentum. If your podcasts, like me, on a regular basis, over an extended period of time, you have a library and a release schedule that builds upon each other to the point where it's easier to find guests, it's easier to continue podcasting, it's easier to build community because you're in someone's face and in someone's ears on a regular basis. The moment you take your foot off the pedal, you start to slide backwards. I drive a standard transmission car, manual transmission, where you have a clutch, a gas pedal, and a brake pedal. So I got 3 pedals and 2 feet. It's fun. And if I'm on a hill, a steep hill, waiting at the lights to go through, it's a red light, I have to navigate 3 pedals at once. Brake, and a clutch, and the gas. And again, I only have 2 feet. I don't have 3 feet. So I have to do some fancy footwork to keep my car running on a hill, steep hill. So the moment I take my foot off the brake and my clutch is in, my car's not engaged to go forward with the clutch, and it's like I'm in neutral. My car starts to roll backwards. So I have to clutch gas at the same time and brake, right? So the moment I take my foot off the gas, my car, or I put my car in the neutral with the clutch in, my car starts to go backwards on a steep hill. So I have to navigate all this, and the momentum's against me in that moment. So the moment you put your podcast in kind of this pause or neutral instead of driving forward, there's a potential that your podcast, like a car on a steep hill, will start rolling backwards. And you're going to have to regain that ground every time you come back with the next season. You're not starting where you left off. You're starting a little bit backwards, and you got to regain those listeners that you lost. And you're starting over at some point every time you come back. So if you have no reason to podcast in seasons, then don't. Don't. Because you're going to be in the constant rebuilding state all the time, every time you come back to your show in every new season. There's increased planning and production demands if you do a seasonal approach to your podcast. Seasons does allow for batch production, but they require significant upfront planning and coordination, which can be overwhelming for a lot of podcasters, especially for new podcasters, because now you got to sit down and plan out an entire catalog instead of just next week's episode. There's potentially some incompatibility with certain formats, like news, current events, timely commentary podcasts may not suit a seasonal format. as these shows often require regular, up-to-date content. So if you take a 2-month break from your news podcast, doesn't mean that news is going to stop. News is going to continue, and people are going to find someone else to get their news from because you're on a break. So keep that in mind. So if you're thinking about a news-based podcast or current event show, a seasonal approach might not be your best option. Again, you can always record and then just take a break. That's fine. No problem. But make sure there's a reason for your season. There's also some audience discovery issues when you go into a seasonal approach for your podcast. New listeners might find it difficult to jump into a podcast with multiple interconnected seasons, especially if the structure isn't clearly communicated to them. Your listener doesn't understand what a season is. They just found your show, and they might have a hard time navigating. Oh, I'm supposed to go back to episode 1, and then, okay, wait, what's happening? When other shows are episodic and you don't have to listen to another episode to understand the context of the next episode, sometimes you're going to need to explain it a little bit more to your audience. And then the one thing too, as you do seasons for your show without a reason, is the pressure to maintain consistency. Some podcasters may feel locked into a set number of episodes per season, so then they're jamming their content into a 7-episode season, but there could be 9 episodes. There could be 3 episodes, and they're either going to draw out the topic into 7 and try to make 7 out of 3, or they're going to try to cram 10 into 7, and because they feel like they're tied to this magic number. A season is this many episodes. You could have, like this show, for example, this is episode 426 of season 1. Because this whole podcast is actually just one gigantic season. I don't have it marked in my podcast host that way, but technically, this is the first and only season of the show with 426 plus episodes. See, so you run into a potential during that break where you as the host might not come back because you have this window of time where you're not podcasting. And like I said, momentum's not in your favor. You might not continue to grow as a person, as a podcaster, because you're not actively podcasting in that seasonal break. And you're going to get a little rusty as you interview people, as you do solo episodes, because you're not on a regular recording schedule. You might go backwards a little bit, and you're going to have to kind of catch up to where you were on where you left off. So just keep it in mind. Podcasting in seasons can offer a significant creative and logistical benefit to you for your show, but it also introduces challenges around planning, keeping your audience engaged, and all of the technical management that happens behind the scenes that your audience will know nothing about. And the decision to see a seasonal format should be based on your content and your audience needs, your schedule, and any production capacity that you have. Don't just do a season because someone told you to do a season. If you don't see a logical reason for a season, then maybe seasons aren't for you. If you don't have a thematic storyline to your episodes and you're going to cover a topic in 10 episodes, seasons might not be for you. If you have more content than you have days of the week, seasons might not be good for you. Remember, just because you want to include breaks from your show to have time to not podcast, which I would encourage for you. I don't listen to my own medicine here in that because I love podcasting to the point where I can't see taking a break. And now I'm different. I understand that. But for you, if you want to take a break, a seasonal approach to podcasting isn't required for you to take a break from your show. Keep that in mind. You do not have to record in seasons to take a break. Just tell your audience, I'm taking a break for a couple months or a couple weeks. I'll see you in the future. Just let them know, because Not that you owe them anything, but because they were worried about you and they love you. So just let them know. Hey, I'm taking a break. I'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks for listening. Go back in the catalog and listen to old episodes. That's it. That's all you have to do to take a break. So if you're being pushed by a guru that all podcasters podcast in seasons, then no, we don't. And just keep in mind that there are no have-tos in podcasting, and you do not have to do anything. You should do what works for you. And just because it works for you doesn't mean it works for others. So please pick the path that works for you. And if you're not sure, reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. We can talk through and see if a seasonal approach is best for you and your show, or maybe it's not. And in that conversation, I'd love to help you with your show. Reach out anytime. Calendar link is right on my website. SpeakPipe is there to leave me a voice message. Anytime, I'd love to help you. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being here. And make sure your season has a reason. Hey, thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to the end of the podcast. You're here with me. I'm so grateful. I want to put something in front of you. For the person that's listened this far, you're my new best friend. So what I'm trying to do every month is I have a goal, and you can help me with this goal. Very simple. What I'm trying to do is have 5 conversations this month with listeners of the How to Podcast series. You don't have to have a podcast to respond. This can be the first time ever that we're going to have a conversation, but I'm looking to talk to 5 people. Now, you're still here, so you're one of the people that I would love to talk to next. So on my howtopodcast.ca website is a calendar, and I'd love to have you respond on howtopodcast.ca. Just click the calendar link, set up time in my calendar, and in the comments section for the meeting, just put something like listener. That's it. If you have a show, put it in the comments too so I can go listen. But if you don't, I just want to talk to 5 listeners every month from now to the end of the month. So if you're listening to me right now, you're the person I want to talk to. And through howtopodcast.ca, you and I can get together, chat about the show, chat about your journey as a podcaster. Where are you at? What do you need the show to become for you? What's missing? Your feedback. I just want to meet you. And as podcasters, I would encourage you to do something similar to this in your podcast so that you can meet and interact with your audience. So, howtopodcast.ca, I'm looking to talk to 5 people every month, and I would love for you to be one of them. Reach out. It's free. I'm not selling you anything. I just want to talk to you at howtopodcast.ca. Let's get in the calendar and chat. Thanks for listening.